$387 is what is in Marcus's checking account on a Thursday afternoon in October. Not $387 after rent, not after bills, but $387 total in the account where his life runs. His next paycheck arrives in 9 days. He is not panicking. And that is the part nobody tells you about living at this level. After a while, you stop panicking and you just start calculating. Marcus is 28 years old, and he makes $31,000 a year coordinating logistics for a regional shipping company outside of Columbus. He knows every bill in his life by its due date, the way some people know their friends' birthdays. The electric bill lands on the 14th, car insurance on the 22nd, his half of the internet on the 1st. He has a whiteboard in his bedroom that lists every single one of them. The amounts are written in blue marker, and the due dates are circled. There is something almost beautiful about that whiteboard. Not in a sentimental way, but in the way that a navigator's chart is beautiful. Precise, functional, kept, because getting lost is not an option. Every dollar has a name, and every circle has a consequence. You have probably had a version of this whiteboard, whether it was an actual whiteboard, a note on your phone, or a mental list you ran through every morning in the shower. The specific object does not matter, because what matters is that you kept it, because not keeping it was a kind of danger you would learn to respect. At $30,000 a year, money is not abstract. It has weight, it has texture, and it shows up in small, specific moments that people at other income levels do not think about anymore. You feel it at the gas station when you decide between filling the tank and getting to Friday. You feel it at the restaurant when you read the menu from right to left, prices first, before anything else. You feel it in the grocery store, standing in front of the olive oil section, picking the one on the second shelf without deliberating, because deliberating is a luxury for people who have options. The rule here is this. At $30,000 a year, scarcity is not a mindset. It is a math problem you solve every single day. Marcus's social life looks fine from the outside. He goes out, he says yes to things. He has learned to nurse a single beer for 2 hours at a bar tab situation without anyone noticing. Or maybe everyone notices and nobody says anything because they are doing the same calculation at their own income level. The specifics change, but the calculation does not. His 401k at work is technically active because he enrolled when his HR rep told him to during onboarding, and he put in 3% because that was the number she suggested. He has not looked at it since, and the balance after 2 years is somewhere around $4,000. He knows this approximately, but he has not opened the app in several months, partly because opening financial apps at this income level can feel like looking directly at a problem you cannot yet solve. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances found that median household net worth in America is about $193,000, and that is the exact middle. Half of all American households have more, and half have less. At $30,000 a year in your late 20s, that number lives very far from where you are standing on a Thursday in October, with $387 and 9 days to go. But here is what the data cannot tell you. It cannot tell you what it actually feels like to build something precise and careful out of very little. It cannot tell you that the discipline Marcus is developing on that whiteboard, the habit of knowing exactly where every dollar lives, is one of the most durable financial skills a person can have. It will not save him at $30,000, but it will follow him if he ever earns more. 9 days is a long time. And also, it is not. Devin remembers the exact deposit. It was a Friday, and he was sitting in his car in the parking garage of his office in Austin when the direct deposit notification came through on his phone. The number was bigger than any number that had ever arrived in his account from a paycheck. He was 30 years old, and he had just crossed $100,000 a year as a mid-level product manager at a software company. For approximately 11 minutes, he felt genuinely, completely, and without complication, ahead. He still drives the same 2017 Civic he bought used when he was making $58,000, and the outside of the car is unremarkable. The inside, though, if you rode in it, would tell you something different. It smells like the $14 coffee he picks up every morning from the place near his apartment. Not because he decided to become someone who spends $14 on coffee. He just started doing it, somewhere around month 3 of the new salary. Now it is a Tuesday, and he is doing it again without thinking, and the cup holder in the 2017 Civic holds it perfectly, and he does not notice. He has not noticed the price in quite some time. This is lifestyle inflation, not the version where someone buys a boat, but the quiet version. The version that arrives as comfort, one automatic yes at a time, until you are saving almost exactly the same percentage of your income that you were saving at $60,000. And the math of how that happened resists easy explanation. Devin's rent is $1,800 a month, solo, and his car payment is $487. He has 3 streaming subscriptions he would describe as necessary, and 2 he would describe as fine. He maxes his Roth IRA, $7,000 this year, because a friend mentioned it was the smart thing to do, and Devin is the kind of person who acts on advice like that. He does not fully understand the mechanics of why it compounds differently than a traditional IRA at his tax bracket, but someone credible told him it mattered. He did it, and that is more than most people at his income level are doing. The rule is this: lifestyle does not inflate all at once. It inflates in subscriptions, upgrades, and habits you do not remember adopting. His emergency fund holds about $6,000, and guidance generally suggests 3 to 6 months of expenses. At his current spending, $6,000 is closer to 2 months, and he knows this. He has thought about adding to it, and that thought tends to arrive on Sunday evenings and leave by Monday morning. The credit card gets paid off most months, and there is a specific Thursday in March he does not think about often, when it did not get paid in full, and he paid the minimum and told himself it was temporary. It was temporary. It just took 4 months. Here is the thing about $100,000 that nobody puts in the thumbnail. It is a real number. It is a meaningful number. And it is more money than most individual earners in this country take home. Median individual income in the United States sits around $53,000, which means $100,000 is almost exactly twice that, placing you solidly in the upper tier of earners by most measures. And yet, after taxes, after rent, after the car and the coffee and the Roth IRA and the subscriptions that are each individually reasonable and collectively enormous, $100,000 can feel, on a Tuesday in March, almost exactly like $60,000 felt. Not because you've done something wrong, but because the container expands to hold whatever you pour into it. Marcus in Columbus, with his whiteboard and his $387, is spending a specific kind of cognitive energy that Devin has mostly stopped spending. Marcus knows where every dollar is, and Devin knows roughly where the big ones are. The difference between those two relationships with money is not purely about virtue. It is about what the income level stops requiring of you. At $30,000, precision is survivable. And at $100,000, imprecision is survivable, which is not the same thing as wisdom. Devin tells himself he will start investing in an index fund outside his retirement accounts when he has a little more breathing room. He has been telling himself this for about 16 months. He is not lazy. He is human. And the breathing room keeps getting filled by the things breathing room gets filled with. He does not know it yet, but this gap, the space between earning more and building more, is exactly what the next income level promises to close. It does not close it, but the promise is very convincing. Sandra opens the Fidelity app at 11:47 on a Wednesday night. The number is fine, better than fine. And combined, she and her husband brought in just over $300,000 last year. She is the higher earner, a senior director at a healthcare company, and her husband runs a mid-sized landscaping business. Together, they have a mortgage on a house in the suburbs of Charlotte worth roughly $680,000, a 529 for their daughter, and maxed 401ks. The employee deferral limit this year is $23,500 each, the legally confirmed limit. And they hit it. They also have a brokerage account they keep meaning to rebalance. She closes the app, then opens it again, and the balance has not changed in 45 seconds. She puts the phone face down on the nightstand. This is not anxiety. She would tell you it is not anxiety. It is just the habit of someone who has built something careful and does not fully trust the feeling of being ahead. Because the feeling of being ahead has been wrong before. And being wrong at this level has different consequences than being wrong at the level below it. At $300,000 a year, you are objectively, measurably, and verifiably in the upper tier of American earners. The Federal Reserve data puts median family income at about $70,000, which means you are earning more than 4 times that. And by almost every statistical measure available, you have made it. And yet, the decisions are bigger now. Not just bigger in dollar terms, but bigger in what they reveal about who you are and what you actually want. The 529 versus the Roth IRA debate is not just a math problem. It is a values question disguised as a spreadsheet. The equity vest that pays out next spring is exciting, and also, depending on how the year goes, taxable in ways your accountant explained in a meeting where you nodded more than you fully understood. You have a financial advisor now who charges 85 basis points on assets under management. You know this because it was in the agreement you signed, and you do not entirely know what it means in annual dollars because calculating it feels like a confrontation you have been willing to defer. The rule is this: the decisions get bigger, but the anxiety does not always get smaller. Sometimes it just gets more expensive furniture to sit on. Sandra is 43,000 feet above where Marcus started, and she can see it. She has days where she feels that distance as accomplishment. And she also has Wednesdays at 11:47, when she opens a number that is fine, closes it, and opens it again. She has not yet fully made peace with the fact that enough is a feeling, not a figure. Her daughter is 8 years old and sleeping in the next room, and that is the quietest fact in the story. And then there is Ray. Ray is 51 years old, and he built a regional distribution company over 14 years, starting from a single truck and a debt he borrowed from his brother-in-law. He paid that debt back in full, early, out of pride more than obligation. His company now moves freight across 6 states, and his income, combined from his salary, distributions from the business, and a real estate portfolio he built on the side, crosses $1 million in most years.
He does not describe himself as wealthy. He describes himself as busy.
His phone does not stop. And there are 23 unread emails on it right now that contain the word urgent. And several of them probably are. He has 2 executives he trusts, one he's not sure about, and a payroll that covers 41 families every 2 weeks. That is a weight he carries in a way that does not have a name but is always present. Somewhere behind his shoulder blades, a low-grade pressure that does not leave when he goes on vacation. He went on vacation last month, and it cost $22,000. And it was fine, and he checked his phone from the pool. His youngest daughter asked him in September if he was coming to her school recital, and he told her he would try. He did not make it. There was a freight situation in Memphis that required his direct attention. Or at least that is what he told himself, and that is probably even true. It does not make the empty seat in the 3rd row any less empty. At $1 million a year, you have solved every problem money was supposed to solve. The grocery bill is irrelevant. The vacation gets booked without checking prices, and the emergency fund is a rounding error in the operating account. You have everything the $30,000 version of yourself was pointing at. What you also have, which nobody puts in the brochure, is a different set of problems. The kind that do not have dollar signs. The kind where the solution is not more capital, more infrastructure, or more optimization, but where you would have to stop, actually stop, and decide what the whole thing was for. The rule is this: wealth is not the absence of financial stress. It is a different kind of financial stress, with better furniture. The Federal Reserve data notes that the top 1% of households hold at least $11 million in wealth. And Ray's not there yet, but he is pointed in that direction and moving fast. And he tracks it quarterly. What he does not track is the number of dinners he has eaten at his desk this year, because he does not have a whiteboard for that. Some nights, late, after the emails quiet down, Ray thinks about the version of himself that had very little.
He does not think about it with self-pity or with nostalgia, exactly. More like the way you think about a place you lived that was too small and too loud, but somehow, in a way you cannot fully defend, felt completely real.
The $30,000 version of himself knew exactly where every dollar lived. He kept a whiteboard, and the circles were precise. He cannot remember the last time anything in his life felt that precise. $387. That is where this started. A Thursday in October. A whiteboard with circles. A man who knew exactly where his money was, because he had no choice but to know. There is a version of this story that says the point of the $30,000 level is to get out of it, to reach the 100, the 300, the million, to solve the arithmetic of survival and graduate into something easier. That version is not wrong, but it is not the whole truth. The whole truth is that every income level offers you something and costs you something. And the costs are not always listed in the terms and conditions. At $30,000, you pay in constraint. And at $100,000, you pay in the quiet erosion of attention. At $300,000, you pay in the pressure of correct decisions and the weight of performing the life you built. At $1 million, you pay in presence, the specific and irreplaceable currency that does not compound.
None of these levels is the finish line. Each one is a different version of the same question, arriving with a different area code and a different set of furniture. The question is not how much you earn. The question is what you are willing to trade at every level to keep earning it, and whether you have ever actually stopped to answer that.
Ray is at his desk, and it is past midnight. And his net worth is in 8 figures, and his checking account balance is the last number he ever thinks about anymore.
The number changed, and the question did not.